Hey, y'all, what's going on? Welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. Running a little behind today. Had to get to the gym, get me a little workout in today, a little postseason, getting back into the swing of things. Anyhow, so much to talk about tonight. By the way, it is a Talk to Him Tuesday, so not only am I going to be talking to you, but y'all are going to be talking to me tonight with your questions and whatnot. As usual, please make sure that you like the show, hit the notification so when the promos come up, you know when we're going. Also, most importantly, with you guys who aren't subscribed, please subscribe to the show at Seth Joyner Show on YouTube. You guys have been phenomenal this year. Appreciate the support. But let's jump into it. And let's look at some questions and, answer some questions. We'll talk about the Super Bowl, obviously. A lot going on. But let's begin with the Eagles. So the Eagles have finally made their hires for their defensive and offensive coordinators, and they are now working through, I'm assuming, because I saw there's one, Clint Hurt was brought on as a D-line coach. So obviously, they're making some moves at the positional coaches. You guys know we found out last week that Vic Fangio was going to be the defensive coordinator. Let's kind of talk about Vic Fangio a little bit because, I think there's some mixed emotions about Vic. And I want to give Vic his respect, but it's also my job, getting information to you guys to also, tell you the things that, I find concerning about, Vic Fangio and his scheme. First of all, he is going to be, a plus for this defense because he's old school and he's not going to tolerate nonsense. The guy's going to be prepared. They're going to be accountable. He's not going to stand for the missed tackles the way that these guys miss tackles and no one holding them accountable. And how do I know that they weren't being held accountable? Because I know as a player, when you have a bad game, not only do you have to sit in front of the 50-something other guys on the roster and watch film, and they get to watch you miss, tackles and make mistakes. So you're held accountable to those guys. But your coaches also hold you accountable, and they should. So like I always say, whatever you see on the field is a matter of, hold on one second, is a matter of what's being tolerated or what's being coached. And at the end of the day, when we keep seeing a team do the same things over and over and over and over again, those things are being tolerated so much more than they're being coached. And it's up to a coach to put his foot down, a position coach to hold guys accountable, and I get it. It's different than my day. In my day, hey, they would, you keep making the same mistake, they cut you and bring in another guy because of salary cap and all of those types of things. It's a different era, and they deal with things a bit differently. But you got enough guys on the roster to send a message. If a guy's not getting it done, what's wrong with sitting his behind over here on the bench, until he gets the message? If the other guy, if his backup wants to play more than he wants to, is more willing to stick his face in there and make a tackle, more willing to get into his playbook and do what's necessary, then put that kid out there. I get it. You're paying this guy a bunch of money. But if he's taking the money and all of a sudden checked out to the detriment of the team, then you got to check his ass out and sit him down and put somebody in that's willing to do what's necessary to get the job done. Plain and simple. You can't risk the failure of the team and what everybody else is putting in and what everybody else is sacrificing week to week because you got a few guys that either aren't putting in the work or that are cowardice to a certain degree and are afraid to tackle. That's just wrong. So we know that Vic Fangio is going to hold these guys accountable. We know Vic Fangio is going to have these guys prepared. Listen, quarterbacks are going to be confused because he is the master at disguising coverages. He's a master at deception, making you think the defense is in one thing, and before you know it, boom, they're in a whole nother look. That's great. My biggest issue with Vic Fangio is his defensive philosophy. And I think it's worked. He's been successful. The guy's been coaching 37 years. But I think that everything evolves over time. I think schemes become obsolete at certain points in time. And I get it. Some of you guys who, follow me on Twitter, that's at Seth Joyner. During the game, I'm pretty active talking about, what's going on during games and whatnot. And it's funny because I was talking about, philosophies and how today's philosophy offensively, and really I was talking about how, how offenses are set up to succeed in today's NFL. The league has set it up in a way where all the rules are in the offense's favor. They're all in their favor. The quarterbacks are protected. The wide receivers are protected. All the things that gave defenses massive advantages are no longer advantages for the defensive side of the football anymore, like intimidation. Guy come across the middle, put his lights out. Can't do it anymore. I get it. You trying to protect the players. But that's an advantage that you've taken away from the defense because now, if you're talking about intimidation and fear in the game, that was what defenses could instill in offenses and offensive players. Can't do it anymore. Now you got wide receivers running across the middle, almost daring you to hit them because they know that if they're looking the other way and you hit them, that it's going to be a 15-yard penalty. And more than likely, it's going to be some type of fine coming up the following week. You can see the disparity between the PI call, okay? The PI call for the defense is a spot foul. That could be 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards downfield. And now you hear coaches talking about, oh, we want to throw it down there. You guys know what I'm talking about. We want to throw it down there and see if we could get, a PI call. So now the coaches are playing towards that. That now we can get 40, 50 yards a chunk just by throwing the ball down the field, throw it short. The smart, crafty wide receivers will come back, create contact. You'll get the flag because the ball's in the air. It's not illegal contact. It's PI, and they get all the yards. On the defensive side of the ball, anytime it's offensive pass interference, it's a 10 to 15-yard penalty. Now, you tell me where's the fairness in that? So the league is set up for the offenses to succeed and for the offenses to dominate. And the only recourse that defenses now have is pressure. It's absolutely pressure. I don't care what anybody else says because, even the way that you play man-to-man coverage. My last year in the league, 1998, okay, I go to Denver. And we get to practice, and, they're trying to figure out where they're going to put me, whether I'm going to play inside, outside, or play a little bit of everything because I wound up backing up all three spots. Well, they put me in on defense, and I'm covering Shannon Sharp one-on-one, okay? So I have never in my career ever played man-to-man coverage unless we bracketed a guy with outside technique. So Shannon comes off the ball. I jam him. I make him release outside, and he takes off across the field. And I'm running with him, and I knock the ball down. So I come back to the huddle, and Greg Robinson, the defense coordinator, looks at me. He's like, hey, what are you doing inside the guy? I'm like, playing man coverage. That's the way you play man coverage. He was like, no. We don't play man coverage that way. We play outside technique. We got a single high safety back there. We want to funnel everything to the middle of the field. That's where your help is. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, let me get this straight. You want me to play outside technique and run with a guy who's faster than me while he's running away from me. And I'm supposed to get some help on the inside when they're running everybody else off on the other side of the field. That's the type of situation we're talking about when you talk about how defenses are at disadvantages. Because really, in my day, we could play single high safety depending on the formation and the down and distance, or we could play two high, cover two man with two high safety, and you got a halves coverage, a half safety on either side. So you always had over the top and outside help. So we always played inside. Anything inside the field, if I'm a yard behind and a yard inside of the guy that I'm covering, I can get in the passing window. If he runs an out, I can get in the passing window. If he runs a seam route, I'm already in the passing window. I'm going to force him to throw it over the top and outside. The toughest route, any kind of crossing route, I'm inside with help over the top. The only route that's a handful for me is a tight end running a corner route, a wide receiver that I'm covering running a corner route, or a running back who runs a corner route on the weak side, because I'm inside and he's running away from me. So when I see this coverage where they play man-to-man outside technique all the time for an entire game, it makes no sense to me, because you're really protecting against one route or two routes, the slot fade and the corner route. Because, if the quarterback can look over here, come back to the slot fade or the corner route on the other side, and that safety in the middle of the field will never get back over there. Those are the two routes that you're protecting yourself from, where I don't have a problem with playing that coverage that way, but every once in a while, put the guys on the inside. So they got a means to actually fight and win some battles. At least line up outside and on the snap of the ball, jump back inside and play inside man technique. But they play outside all the time. And that's a dead giveaway for especially quarterbacks like today. If I look out there and I see the guy lined up outside shade, I know I got the slant, any kind of in-breaking route, bang 8. I got that route all day, every day. That's like pitch and catch between me and a top flight wide receiver, or any quarterback in a top flight wide receiver. So my point is that they got to mix up the way that they play man-to-man coverage, for one, and they got to mix up how they play blitz coverage, and they got to come after quarterbacks more often. You saw for both Patrick Mahomes and we'll get on, and I got some commentary later on about the AFC NFC Championship games. I think that two teams absolutely blew a golden opportunity. But my point was, in the first half, Baltimore was afraid to come after Mahomes. And I get it. It's Patrick Mahomes. Most people think like that. It cost us a Super Bowl last year thinking that way. Okay? He scored all 17 of Kansas City points in the first half of that game. Do you realize in the second half, they didn't score one single point, Kansas City? You know how hard that is? They didn't score 1 point. Because in the second half, the conservatism and the fear of being beat like a drum against Patrick Mahomes led to, and them being down 17 to 7 or 17 to 13, whatever it was, 3, they had no other choice but to come after him. So now they come after him. You're getting some 3 and outs. You make some stops on first down. Now you got them behind the chains on first down. Now they got to come. You can come after them if you want to in a run situation, because you know what? They're probably going to run the ball or a short passing play, try to get half of it so they can get the third and manageable. That's what they did in the first half. Baltimore flipped the script in the second half because they got a lot more aggressive against Patrick Mahomes, and they shut him down in the second half. Now, Lamar picked the worst day to have his worst game as a quarterback, because if he makes some of those throws and they don't make half of those mistakes, they're in a situation where they probably can flat out win that game. But my point is, you cannot sit back and play zone all the time, and you cannot be protective all the time because you I'll keep saying it until I'm blue in the face. You make your players conservative when you play a conservative brand of football. That means they're not attacking. And I want my defense attacking. I want my defense forcing the issue. That's the only way you're going to force turnovers. It's called forced turnovers because you force it. But when you're in protective mode, when my mindset is, oh, I don't want to let him beat me over the top. No, I'm not playing. I'm not taking chances. I'm not using my God-given talent to make something happen. I'm waiting for something to happen, and I'm trying to prevent something from happening. And that's not the way, in my opinion, that you play defensive football. But that's where we have evolved to because offenses are so wide open and the advantages are clearly on their behalf. So what do? We acquiesce to it instead of coming after teams the way the teams came after Jalen Hurts this year. They figured out that we had no remedy for the blitz, and they blitzed them like they were losing their damn mind. And it worked. It worked. It worked because they had no answer for it. None whatsoever. All right, Jalen, go out there. We want you to make the first blitz a miss, and then, the free runner, and then we want you to chuck it downfield and go for a shot play. How'd that work out? Okay. So if a coordinator can figure out that he can speed up your quarterback's clock, that he can make him feel uncomfortable, the good coordinators today are going to absolutely do that. Now, I say all of that because that's not who Vic Fangio is, okay? He's going to be good for this defense, but if you line up 8 to 10 yards off the football on first and second down, okay, it's not going to matter one iota what all the other good stuff that you do because the good quarterbacks are just going to raise up and throw it out there, and they're just going to make 5, 6, 7, 8 yards every single time that they do so. If these cornerbacks, whoever they are next year, do not get up and press coverage and put their hands on wide receivers and be aggressive with wide receivers. I'm not talking about getting up and just opening the gate and letting the guy run by you while you're standing horizontal to the line of scrimmage. He's running vertically past you. You're already dead. You're dead right then and there, okay? But I'm talking about getting up, getting physical on wide receivers, not being afraid that you're going to miss the jam and they're going to hit a bomb over your head, but confident enough to put your hands on people and disrupt routes, okay? The reason why, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Travis Kelce, phenomenal player in today's NFL, okay? But in my day, we wouldn't let him just release free off the ball without putting a hand or without jamming him, okay? The reason why he catches so many balls is because he's always open because nobody ever jams him. Nobody ever puts a hand on him to slow him down and to get him off rhythm as far as the route is concerned. Every time that he catches the ball, he's where he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be, and Patrick is throwing the ball on time and on rhythm. So if you jam him, if you hit him, now you throw him off timing and you throw him off rhythm. And when Patrick looks to throw him the ball, he's not where he's supposed to be. He's got to go to the next read. But they're so afraid of getting run by that they won't even get up and jam people. And they just let him run roughshod, 100 yards receiving in the first half against the number one defense in the National Football League. Come on. Scare money don't win. You either in it to win it, and you're going to let them hang, or you might as well call it a day because a finesse team like that will do that to you every single time when you decide that you're not going to be physical with them. They decided to get physical with him in the second half, and it was too late. Too late, okay? So my question is, how much more aggressive? Listen, Vic Fangio is going to be a little more aggressive. He's going to be more aggressive than Sean Desai was. He's going to be more aggressive, than Jonathan Gannon was. And he's going to be more creative in how he goes about it. The question is, how much can we get to a place where we begin to dictate the offenses like defenses dictated to us this year rather than it being the other way around, okay? That's what I'm concerned with as far as Vic Fangio is concerned. Let's get over on Kellen Moore for a second. Had a long dialogue with a guy on Twitter today. Wanted to talk to me about how successful Kellen Moore had been. Listen, if he comes in and he adds something to this offense and he takes Nick's offense to another level with with the RPO and the read option and what he brings to the table, the one thing I know is that the guy can scheme. He has some good schemes in Dallas. I just think he was in a bad position because Mike McCarthy always wanted to be the play caller. Kellen Moore was Jerry Jones's guy. But when Dak Prescott had 15 interceptions, and then Mike McCarthy decided he wanted to call plays, guess what? Kellen Moore was on the move. And this guy wanted to debate me that, hey, he didn't get fired. Well, listen, there's a way of being fired without necessarily being fired, okay? Didn't Matt Patricia, they decide not to pick up his contract, or he decided to explore other options? What does that mean? Your ass was fired. That they didn't want you back. Isn't that what that means? So there's a way to be fired without necessarily being fired, And the knock on Kellen Moore was he didn't run the ball enough. He had two able-bodied running backs that both were averaging over 5 yards a carry in Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard, and he threw the ball too much. That's what contributed to Dak Prescott's 15 interceptions that year. And then the guy says to me, Dak was holding on to the ball. Well, isn't that up to the head coach? Isn't that up to the OC and the quarterback coach to get him when he's going through his progressions and he's doing things the proper way? Okay. That OC being Kellen Moore. Okay. So let's fast forward. Kellen Moore leaves. He goes to LA with the Chargers. Got one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the game right now in Justin Herbert. And I know Justin Herbert was hurt on and off all year, but even when he was healthy, something was off. It just wasn't clicking. Now, again, I'm not saying that Kellen Moore is going to come here and fall flat on his face. With all the talent that he has, okay, and the ability to run the football with this offensive line, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't have success. My greatest fear is that the Eagles, not Kellen Moore's, but the Eagles, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, and to a certain degree, Nick Sirianni, because he's certainly doing everything that they tell him to do. Now, my problem is they're going to fall in love all over again, throwing the ball all over the map. If Jalen Hurts gets off to a good start next year and he starts having 300-yard games, they're going to fall in love even much, much more with the explosive play down the field. And I'm telling you, you've got to balance that out. You've got to run the football. A lot of what plagued out our offense this year came on the heels of us getting behind the sticks from throwing on first and second down and getting in third and long. Where if we had run the football on first down or second down, maybe we get into third and manageable situations, okay? But now when you get into these long yardage situations on second and third down, and teams know that you don't sight adjust or you don't have hot routes, guess what? They're coming at you. They're coming after your quarterback. And Nick Sirianni had no answer all season long. Kellen Moore is going to put Jalen under center more, which I agree with, okay? They're going to run some misdirection, some bootlegs, some short rolls, get him out of the pocket. They're going to do some things that Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson haven't been creative enough to use. They thought that they could take 2022 season and everything that they did well and just roll it into 2023 and everything would be, normal, not realizing that every team in the National Football League that was going to play the Eagles and potentially would have to play the Eagles spent the entire offseason coming up with a method and a way to shut down what they did in 2022. And they just kept doing the same damn thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. We all know that's insanity, okay? So my thing is, how difficult is it to say, hey, if you've got a blitz look and you're in the slot and your man comes, run an out route because the safety's coming from the hole, or he's coming from halves coverage. He got a long way to go to come and get you so we can get the ball out of the quarterback's hand. No, what do? We run all goals outside the damn hash marks and ask Jalen to make the first guy miss and just throw the ball up, okay? So now, the most encouraging thing is the fact that Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman sat in that press conference a week ago tomorrow and pretty much said that whoever comes in is going to have full autonomy and authority over the offense, okay? A lot of people saw that as Howie and Jeffrey castrating Nick Sirianni in order for him to keep his job. Now, if that's the case, it's going to get interesting, because then it'll all be at some point, the rubber's going to meet the road. At some point, there's going to be some kind of conflict between Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni because, depending on who wants to do what. If Kellen Moore has the final say, what is it that Nick can tell him when it comes to calling the plays, if he's calling the plays and Jeffrey and Howie is giving him full autonomy? It'll be the same thing over on the defensive side of the ball. I'm pretty sure Vic Fangio don't want to hear nothing from Nick Sirianni about what he thinks. He's the guy. They've been trying to get this guy for 3 years. They no longer have the branch, the leaves. They got the full boat tree. Okay. So we're going to see what this defense is going to look like because this is the guy who they've wanted for the last 3 years and they finally got it. Okay. Hey, listen, I ended my conversation today with this guy. Listen, I hope that Kellen Moore comes in here and gets this team right because they got too much talent not to be one of the most explosive offenses in the National Football League. And actually they were, even as bad as they played, they still finished, upper third, in the National Football League in the offense this year, believe it or not. So I'm always looking at both sides of the coin. I hope that the Eagles get this thing right. I hope that I got to, kind of eat crow as far as what this team looks like from an offensive and a defensive standpoint next year, okay? But I'm just giving you guys my thoughts on where this thing is and where it potentially could be, just based upon the history of these two coordinators and the places that they've been and their philosophies on how offense and defense should be played. And then I'm giving you my perspective, okay? From the offensive side of the ball, let's run the football. Let's utilize the short to intermediate passing game. And then when you've got a team on the ropes and you got them doing things that they don't necessarily really want to do, now take your shots down the field. Shot plays down the field in a lot of ways is similar to on the defensive side of the ball. Buddy Ryan used to always say, you guys want to rush the passer? You want to blitz? You got to earn the right to do that. You know how you do that? You shut down their running attack and you make them one-dimensional. It's the same thing on offense. If you want to take shot plays, you have to earn the right to do that. What does that mean? Dominate the line of scrimmage running the football. Dominate the chains by moving the chains and being around 50% on third down conversions. Try to score every single possession that you have the ball. So now when you have a lead as the game progresses, now what has to happen is that teams have to do things defensively that they don't like to do. They got to play more man coverage to take somebody away. They got to blitz more in order to try to make something happen. Now Jalen Hurts can stand there and pre-snap read, blitz is coming, okay? Call everybody back in and go max protection. Now look and see, is it AJ that gives me the best matchup? Is it Dallas that gives me the best matchup? Is it Smitty that gives me the best matchup? And now we're going to protect it up in a max way, maybe even bring Dallas in and run a two-man route. We're going to protect it up max, and we're going to send two guys out, okay, in a route. And we're going to dominate wherever it is that we need to dominate. But you're not going to get that just because you want it. You're not going to get that because you're telling your quarterback to force the ball down the field. You're not going to get that just because that's your philosophy, and everybody in the National Football League knows that that's your philosophy. You're going to get that because you earn that, okay? And the only way that you're going to earn that is by doing what I just described: run the football, short to intermediate, moving the sticks, okay? San Francisco has made a living doing that this year, and they're going to the Super Bowl. Somebody tell me, how many balls have you seen Brock Purdy complete? Over 20 yards down the field, except for the one he threw and it bounced off the defender's head and Ayuk caught it, okay? Most of the time, they're throwing 10, 15, 20-yard routes, Brock Purdy is, and Ayuk and Kittle and Debo and Christian McCaffrey are turning those into 30, 40, 50-yard explosive plays. They're not generating explosive plays by long balls, 80-yard touchdowns down the field. No, they're throwing 10 to 15-yard routes and then breaking tackles and taking them to the house. That's how they're creating explosive plays. The Eagles, on the other hand, believe that if they chuck it downfield long enough times, that sooner or later they're going to get lucky and get one. And then you wonder why your quarterback had 17 interceptions this year. It's insanity to me, the way that mode of thinking. Insanity. Defensively, again, I think that you got to be more pressure conscious. Every single quarterback that I've ever seen, that I've ever played against, that I've ever watched, pressure is like their kryptonite. It's like kryptonite to Superman. No quarterback wants to have to not be able to step into his throws. No quarterback wants to be sped up to where he's in a situation where a free run is coming. I got one decision, and if it's wrong, it's either an incompletion and we punt, or it's wrong and it's an interception going the other way. Quarterbacks don't like that. They like to be able to sit in the pocket, decipher what's going on, go through their progression, and hit the open guy. What pressure does is speeds all of that up and forces them to make bad decisions under duress. And I believe me, when you got premier pass rush like they did in 2022 with 70 sacks, you can make that happen without bringing pressure. But at some point in time, they needed the pressure. When they needed it in the Super Bowl, it wasn't there because they weren't used to blitzing. Same situation. Okay, you can be a passive defense all you want, but there's going to come a point in time in every single game where you're going to have to make a stop. 3rd and long. I've never seen so many 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20 completions in all my life. You want to know why? Because the minute you get in 3rd down, defenses, the first thing they want to do, I want to play sticks. Why? You can play it a good percentage of the time. But the odds say sooner or later it's not going to work in your favor. So what's wrong with playing your DBs 5 to 6 yards off the ball, man-to-man coverage? You come with a blitz where they can't pick it up. The quarterback has to make a quick decision and get it out of his hands. And now you're relying on your DBs to make a tackle and get off the field. Nothing wrong with that. But you got to have cornerbacks that want to tackle. And probably the reason why the Eagles don't do that is because neither one of their cornerbacks really want to come up and lay some wood on nobody. They want to come up and push you out of bounds. They want to grab you. They want to dive at your feet and get up and clap their hands like, oh, man, I almost made that tackle. While he goes running on 3rd and 15 and converts 16 yards on 3rd and 15. Makes no sense whatsoever. All right. Well, I'm going to take a little break so my guy can pump in some questions. Let's get to the questions, and then we'll end the show with me breaking down and talking about the NFC AFC Championship game. First question. Let's roll them. Is my guy here? Did he take a break? Let me see. Oh, there we go. Let's go. X Ranks wants to know, given the salary cap implications with cutting Bradbury and him being too stiff to play slot corner, do you think there's a possibility to move him to free safety and put Sidney Brown at strong safety? Listen, man, I don't know that. One of the first things that goes as a professional when you get up in age is your confidence. Because, listen, I knew when it was close to being over, there was no doubt about it. I could tell that my reactions weren't as quick as they used to be. I mean, I can remember lining up over a tight end one time, and I'm lined up and I'm telling myself, he's going to reach you, he's going to reach you, he's going to reach you, and reaches me. And my reaction time was so slow. And I knew that was the beginning of the end right then and there, because I knew what the guy was going to do to me, and I couldn't react to it fast enough. Football's a young man's game. And I don't know that James Bradbury, listen, he's a long strider. He's tall. He's got long legs. And he's never really been a hitter. He's been a zone cornerback the majority of his life. So that kind of scares me, because the Eagles are still pretty much a zone team. Is there a possibility that they might chalk it up that, hey, he just had an off year, and bring both him and Slade back because of salary cap reasons? I don't know. But moving to safety, absolutely not. He doesn't have the speed to play at safety, especially if you're going to play him as a whole safety. He's got to get depth, and he's got to get over top, and he's got to be smart enough to know where quarterbacks are trying to look you off and come back the other way. I just don't think that, I don't think the guy has anything left. Listen, I like him. Good dude. I'm sure that when he's playing bad, it's not because he wants to play bad. It's just when it's done, it's easy to see. Unless he had some hidden injury that none of us knew about that was really hindering him, and they weren't telling us. Sometimes that happens. I remember, last year I think something was wrong with Darius Slay. He had some kind of knee procedure done after the season. Nobody talked about it. I don't know. Nobody really knows. But I don't think that safety is an option. All right, next question. Doesn't Fangio's hire make Fletcher a must, even if Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter improve? Neither have shown consistent ability to drop anchor for his 4-eye shade 5 or modified Oki 4-eye shade. Man, you really been studying this thing, huh, James? 4-eye tight, front or gap and a half. Hey, listen, man. That sounds like a whole lot of 2-gapping to me. Certainly Jordan Davis is, more than able to do that. The thing I want to see the most, and I don't know, Fletcher started off on fire, and I think a lot of that, both he and Jordan Davis, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the young kid, Jalen Carter, came in just on fire, and he was the talk of the town. And I know they weren't jealous of him, but I do know that when you play the same position and you've been a perennial Pro Bowler for 6 years, okay, and you come in and you the number 13th overall pick the year before, and everybody is hooting and hollering about you, and all of a sudden the young guy, the rookie, comes in and he's the talk of the town. If that doesn't motivate you to get going, I think in a lot of ways that's what motivated both Fletcher and him. Now, I don't know. A lot depends on, and Fletcher made a lot of money, and he's been making a lot of money for a long time. A lot is going to depend on how much money Fletcher's going to want to come back. BG at the other end of the spectrum, I think that BG just he don't want to go anywhere else, and he wants to play another year. He wants to finish his career as an Eagle. Fletcher doesn't come across that way to me. I think if Fletcher has an opportunity to, go somewhere else for the right price, he's gone. So the Eagles have gotten younger at tackle. You got Milton Williams. You got Tui Pelotu. You got Ojomo. I thought Ojomo, when given an opportunity to play some pretty good football this year. Now, it's yet to be seen what that's going to look like moving forward. But at some point in time, you got to start moving on, and I'm in favor. If you're going to bring BG back, and I'm not saying get rid of Fletcher, I'm not saying keep him. I don't know. My thing is, if you're going to bring BG back, then I think you need to play him sometimes at defensive tackle, or in your 5-man front instead of going 5-man, with your defensive ends, instead of having Josh Sweat drop into coverage, put BG in, kick him down to a 5, and walk the Sam Backer or the Will Backer up like what they did with Cunningham a little bit this year. Now you got your 5-man look out of base, which doesn't tip your hand because you can actually shift to that while the quarterback is in his cadence. And then you can get to a 7-man box to be able to stop the run by dropping the safety in the box, next to the linebacker, the remaining linebacker that's off the ball. So there's a whole lot of different things that you can do to kind of remedy some of what you're talking about. But listen, Fletcher's been a 3-technique defensive tackle the majority of his career. He doesn't like getting down in the 2 or the 1. The 4-eye, he's just getting a little wider than the 3. He's certainly going to be in a position where they're going to double team him there. I would just like to see a lot more movement on the defensive line, some more games, even on first and second down run stunts, to actually help with not only the pass rush, but to also help in early downs, because more times than not, our defensive front was just they were sitting ducks. If you line up in 4-man, you were either in an under or over, and guys weren't moving at the snap of the ball. They played their gap. Never did you see Fletcher Cox line up in the 3 and spike down, inside the A gap, and then wrap the Mike Backer or wrap the defensive 10 tackle on the other side around in a stunt. Wherever they lined up is where they played. So it made it very easy for the offensive line and the quarterback to determine what the protections and what the blocking schemes were going to be, because they were predictable. All right. So I don't know. Let's see. How do I feel about Milton? Okay. Slimville Slugger wants to know my thoughts on move Slade to free safety, restructure Bradbury, and then develop Ricks and Ringo as the young corners. What do you think? Hey, listen, I was all in on Ricks and Ringo early in the season. I'm not a big fan of taking these cornerbacks that we have on this roster and moving them to safety. I understand why you're trying to do it, because you're trying to figure out, the salary cap situation, because they're owed so much money. I'd be more apt to put Slade at safety than I would Bradbury. But I would even look at Slade maybe in the slot than I would at corner. I mean, he's traveled with some teams' number 1s, and when they put them in the slot, he travels with them in the slot. Now, the problem with that's their giveaway. Once they see him travel with that guy in the slot, they know that it's man coverage. That's for a coaching staff. To me, that's the ability to be able to be creative enough to throw teams off. You should be able to put Darius Slade in the slot and still run all of your concepts, whether it's man, zone, blitz, or whatever. You should be able to do that. That's on the coaches to be able to create that diversity, so that you're not giving away what you're in by alignment defensively. The Eagles couldn't do that. When he traveled, you knew they were in man. If he stayed out and the guy was in the slot, you knew you could have man, you could have zone, you have zone blitzes, you could have a myriad of different things, So I think it's time for the Eagles to move on. If I'm dealing with Bradbury, I extend him a year and then cut him, so that you can spread some of that money out. Expand him to 3 years. That way you're in a situation where your cap hit is 6, 6, and 6. I'd much rather do that than have that big 12 number, next year. So I don't know. It's the mistake they made was last year. They should have re-signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They should have kept one of the corners and let the other one go. That was the play that they should have made. All right, next question. D-Space wants to know, in my tour opinion, do I think it makes sense for Howie Roseman to sign a free agent linebacker a 1-year deal to compete with Nakobe Dean? I would also sign a good linebacker to a 3-year deal for stability. Listen, the whole linebacker court needs to be revamped. I know that they're going to turn around. They're going to bring Zach Cunningham back. How he gloated about him in the press conference last week. I didn't see it. He said he had a good season. Hard pressed to find that. I think the linebackers probably had 1 or 2 good games all season long. You had, Morrow with the 3 sack game. Other than that, what impact play on defense did you see Cunningham make? None, in my opinion. What I would do is I would reinforce the whole deal. I would draft one. I would trade for the Malcolm Rodriguez kid. He plays for the Lions. He was a starter. And the Derek Barnes kid came in. He lost his job to him this past season. When Barnes got hurt last week, he was the kid that came in and got the interception. He's sitting on the bench, and I promise you, he don't want to be, a backup because the kid started for 2 years. With all these extra draft picks that Howie's going to have, that's a kid that I would earmark. I'd go get him. I trade for him. I package some of those 5s and maybe a 3 and go and get him. Because you need some experience. A guy that's played linebacker, started at linebacker in the National Football League, not special teams guys or converted safeties, none of that, no more of that BS. Go get me a linebacker. And then they need to go and they need to draft one. And then sign three more in free agencies to create this era of competition in training camp where nobody feels like they've got their job locked up. Like Nakobe Dean ain't done shit. He shouldn't have the feeling that, he's the guy. And how we continuing, to blow him up makes no sense whatsoever. Whatever happened to making these young guys, even though you drafted them, whatever happened to you making them prove that they're viable options moving forward? You don't ever just give anybody anything because then they can't appreciate it. If you make him work for it, if you make him compete for it, but he's in a position where Howie's saying we believe in him and the kid ain't done nothing. Nothing. He's undersized, and I submit to you that's why he's hurt all the time, because he's undersized, 220 pounds, and I'm being generous, trying to take on linemen that he's giving away 100 pounds to. And you want to know why he's always hurt? His little body can't take that kind of force, okay? And then the one game where he actually played pretty decently because everybody wanted to bring to my attention he had 12 tackles in the game. 3/4 of those tackles were 5, 6, 7 yards downfield. That's unimpressive for a linebacker. So let's create. Nick Sirianni used to always talk about competition, free throw shooting with his guys and doing all. Create some competition on the field. That's the one thing, now that I'm thinking about it, we didn't hear a lot about this coming year. We didn't hear a whole lot of, Nick Sirianni and competition. He loves the competition with the players. Didn't hear a lot about that this year, And I think it behooves a team. The cream always rises to the top, and you always get the best of your best in your roster when you allow players to compete for a job rather than just handing a guy a job because he's the number 1 draft pick or he's a draft pick that's picked so high that you feel like you got to put him out there. No, it's whatever happened to meritocracy in the National Football League. The best player gets the job. Okay. And I know I'm a little biased because I came in with a guy that was drafted in the 2nd round. I was drafted in the 8th round. And by our second year in the league, he was out the league and I was starting. I always say that, they wasted that draft pick. They should have drafted me in the 2nd round. But to me, it was about meritocracy. I outworked him. I out-trained. I outperformed. I out-prepared. So I won the job. That's the way it should go. But teams are so caught up on how bad it's going to make them look when they pick a guy and they get it wrong and you bring in a free agent or a late round draft pick and he outperforms that guy. That just tells you that you got his motivations for the game wrong. If a player wants to be great and he has the ability and you draft him high, he's going to work to be great. If he's just satisfied with making the team, you made a mistake. And you need to own up to the mistake by cutting his ass and playing the guy who really wants to play, is willing to do the work. Plain and simple. It doesn't get any different than that. And if it means you having to eat some salary cap money, so be it. Because I thought that the game was about winning. If it's about winning, then you put the best 11 out there every single down. All right. Next play. Next question. Philly Top Podcast wants to know how I feel about Milton Williams' role increasing big time this season if Fletcher leaves. Hey, listen, it's time. All of those guys have been here, 2+ years. At some point in time, you're training to be the guy. Okay. Fletcher's been the guy. Yeah, he was a first-round draft pick, but that doesn't mean that Milton Williams, I think, a second or third-round pick, that doesn't mean that you can't evolve into that. Work your ass off so you could be the starter. Isn't that what you're here for? So I don't see any reason why not. I think the more responsibility they give him from a playing time perspective, the better player he'll be. But I also think that, these guys, I was talking about this the other day, these guys they're not in shape to play a whole game. Everybody kept talking about how tired they were at the end of the season, and I found out they don't even condition after practice. I'm like, that blows my mind. How in the world can you play football at the pro level and you practice a whole season and you never condition? What do you have left in the third quarter, at the end of the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter? I'm not saying get guys out there and run them on 2000s or run them on gassers every day, but come on, you got to do some conditioning. When I interned at Buffalo, it's another thing. That's the thing that blew my mind too. They never condition. They practice for an hour and a half and then they get off the field like they've done something. How are you going to play a 60-minute football game unless you condition your body to play in a 60-minute game? A 60-minute walkthrough ain't going to necessarily give you the conditioning that you need to play in a 60-minute game. The intensity is higher. The adrenaline usage is higher. I don't understand the way that these guys think. And all of it comes down to probably sports science, heart monitors, and all this crap that they're using, nowadays to make sure that guys you're not overworking them. Listen, the body can achieve whatever the mind can conceive, okay? And if you think your ass is tired, you'll be tired. But if you train for a 90-minute game in the offseason, a 60-minute game ain't nothing. Ain't nothing. I never wanted to come off the field. I never did come off the field. I was the first, second down, and the nickel linebacker. Never came off the field. Only time I came off the field is if I was hurt. You want to know why? Because I conditioned in the offseason. And we conditioned during the season so that my body, my lungs, my cardio was ready for a 60-minute game. No questions. Because if the offensive lineman can do it, they don't come out. The offensive lineman can play a whole game. If the cornerbacks and the safeties can play a whole game, and most of the time, if a wide receiver can play a whole game and linebackers play a whole game, you mean tell me the rest of the guys can't get their fat asses in shape and play a whole game? Come on, man. We got this thing messed up. We don't let the analytics go too damn far now. Too far. All right? Next question. We just going to keep rolling. Data Philly wants to know, do I think Dean can be the guy at his size in Fangio's defense? I don't know what Fangio's defense means. Because, unless you're playing a 5-man front all the time where he's got one gap and he doesn't have to take on blocks, he's going to have to, what defense is he going to fit in? Because in the 4-man front, you certainly going to have to come down and pull those double teams off your tackles, whether it's a 1 or 2 technique or whether it's a 3 technique. Okay? So you're going to have to take on these big guys. And we've seen how that's fared so far. So whether it's Fangio's defense or anybody else's defense, listen, fronts are universal. You got your 4-man front, your 5-man front, your 3-man front, your unders, your overs, your evens, your odds. You got all of these. They're universal. And in every single situation, you're going to be accounted for in the blocking scheme somehow, some way, unless somebody screws it up and messes it up. Okay? So you are either going to have to take on a tight end blocking down on you, a guard or a tackle blocking down on you, or in goal line situation when you playing 49ers, you got Juszczyk coming in there on an ISO. Or that big boy in Baltimore, number 42, that weigh 300 pounds to play tight end and fullback. Still going to have to come up and take on somebody. Question is, can he do it? Next question. Iron Man wants to know, what do you think of swapping, trade A.J. Brown? Hell no. Come on, man. No. A.J. Brown is one of the top 5 wide receivers in the game. Him and Jalen just got to get on the right page. And Nick Sirianni and this offensive coaching staff need to put him in the best position to succeed. Okay? And another thing, I was talking to somebody about this today. People always like to talk about culture in the NFL. And I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I tell you this. Most of the time when culture comes up, it's because your team is getting his ass kicked. Because when the Eagles were 11-1, nobody was talking about culture. Nobody. Then all of a sudden, the Eagles hit a patch, and now we want to talk about culture because guys are talking, things are coming out of the locker room, so on and so forth. Makes no sense to me. Winning always takes care of culture. So I don't want to hear a coach talk about, oh, I got to build the culture. No, winning builds your culture. All right? All right, we got about 5 minutes left. No more questions. I'm going to talk to you guys about this NFC AFC Championship game that I watched. Let's begin with Patrick Mahomes. Listen, man, I am sick and tired of Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, being in the mix every year. But at the end of the day, what are you going to do? Baltimore came in with the wrong approach, too conservative to begin the game, changed it up in the second half. By that time, it was too late. I just don't get these coordinators. You look at Lamar Jackson and that Baltimore offense, they are the number 1 ranked rushing team in the National Football League. Do you know that they ran the ball to the running backs 8 times in that game the other night, and they were never in a situation where they had to throw the ball because the game was insurmountable. The lead was that insurmountable. They made a decision to make themselves one-dimensional, and boy, Steve Spagnuolo went to work on bringing pressure and coming after Lamar and keeping him in the pocket. And then the worst part about it is, as great as he's played all season long, he picked the worst weekend on the most important game to be off. I can't tell you how many balls he overthrew, how many throws he missed, third down conversions. He got a running back in the flat wide open that will convert, and he misses just a layup. It's amazing, man. It truly is amazing that such a dominant defense chose to be so conservative at the most important time. And they couldn't get to Patrick Mahomes. He's scrambling all over the place. And then the second half, they decide, okay, we got to be a little more aggressive. And it worked. They didn't score a single point in the second half. So you got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid going to another Super Bowl over in the AFC. This is the most egregious one to me. How in the world does Detroit blow 17-point lead? It's almost like they win it at halftime. And don't tell me that San Francisco went in and came out with some kind of different game plan that completely switched it up. No. I don't know whether Detroit thought that they had it locked up or what. But, man, you talk about a tale of 2 different halves. And then the turnover by Gibbs was just absolute crusher because it swapped all the momentum in San Francisco's favor. And the clincher for me is Dan Campbell. When you have the broadcast basically saying, well, he's been aggressive all year long. We expect for him to be aggressive here. No. The playoffs is different. The regular season, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get position for the postseason. Once you get in the postseason, points are of a premium. So you take the points. If they take the field goal rather than going for it on fourth down and not converting, then they come back and they get the ball, they go down and they score again. Now we got a tie game with little time left in the game, and you got a chance to go to overtime and win the football game, okay? But the fact that you just go for it on every time, these coaches are drunk on going for it on fourth down, on being what they call aggressive and what I call stupid. That's not the first time. When Kansas City, no, it wasn't Kansas City. Maybe it was. When Kansas City beat, no, it was the Rams. When the Rams beat Cincinnati in the Super Bowl, similar situation. Cincinnati had stopped the Rams offense 3 times in a row. The Cincinnati offense gets to the 50-yard line, and it's 4th and 1 or 2, and instead of punting and making an offense who hadn't done crap all day long march the length of the field, they go for it, don't make it. They give the Rams the ball at midfield. 3 plays later, OBJ touchdown. Game was over right there. They lost the game by 4 points. Those 4 points can be equated to that touchdown that they gave away instead of making the Rams earn it. It makes no sense. These coaches have to get away from this. At times, you got to pick and choose. That analytics guy that's in your ear, he's just giving you the numbers. But when you have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, you can't make those decisions. Dan Campbell cost this team, and I respect the hell out of Dan. You guys heard what I said about him last week. He can't make that decision. And then you look at his quotes the other day. He said, hey, no one's guaranteed to get back. You know, we're not guaranteed to get back. You damn right. When you got the opportunity, you got to make the smart decision and do what you got to do, because anything can happen. You know, Jared Goff can get an ACL tear next year, and you ain't got no quarterback. You know, Aaron Glenn could leave. I know Ben Johnson's going back. I don't know why. I get that he's going back, but anything can happen from year to year. Nothing guarantees you getting back. The Eagles are a glaring, example of that this year. Got there last year, got off to a good start, thinking they're going to get back. Boom, it all blows up. Everything goes to hell in a handbasket, in the second half, the second quarter of the season. So, I don't know. I mean, now you got the 49ers against Kansas City, another physical team against another finesse team. And I'm telling you right now, if they think that San Francisco, they think they're going to sit back in that zone and stop Patrick Mahomes, they're going to have a problem, okay? Because the only way that you're going to stop him is you got to get that run game under control on first and second down. Because if they can get to second and short, third, second and intermediate, now playbook is wide open. They can run it on second down. They go play pass on second down, but you got to get them behind the chains on first down. You got to win first down against Patrick Mahomes. If you can win first down, you got a chance when you come after him and you bring some pressure, and you better bring some pressure, okay? I don't care how fast your secondary is. Travis Kelce can find holes, and all they want to do is convert third downs and score every possession and put pressure on you, okay? So you want to put a guy up on Travis Kelce on the line, jam him at the line of scrimmage, and then bring some pressure. Throw the timing off, okay? That's the only way they're going to beat him. And listen, that defense of Kansas City is playing as good as you've seen it play in forever. They made some wise decisions and draft picks and whatnot, and they're just playing great football across the board. So it's going to be a great matchup in Super Bowl 58. But it's so unfortunate for the Detroit Lions to lose that game the way they lost that game. They had it. And then you turn around in Baltimore, the best team in the National Football League this year, just, didn't go about things the right way in the first half of that game and just gave it away to Kansas City after shutting Patrick Mahomes down in the second half. Well, hey, guys, listen, that's it for the show today. I'll see you guys next week. Again, thanks for the comments. Thanks for the views. Most importantly, thanks for most importantly, thank you guys for subscribing. I'll see you guys next week right here, same place, same time. Make sure you take care of each other, be good to each other, but most importantly, make sure that you love each other. I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.
When you open the BetParx app, you're in the zone. Winning is always a rush, but the money is in the moments. It's the confidence and underdogs covering, the tension before a clutch turnover, and the pride of a parlay paying off. It's another chance to win big with all-day action. Plus, win your first $10 bet and get $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun, you love to win. You bet. BetParx.
If you understand that success is built on trusted relationships and dependable performance, Mid-Penn Bank is the right bank for you. We're on a mission to prove that the right bankers can make a big difference. We work harder, we get things done, and we're in your corner. With financial centers strategically located throughout the greater Philadelphia region and new locations in central New Jersey, we're ready to bring you the best in commercial and personal banking. Call or visit us today to connect with a professional Mid-Penn banker. Member FDIC. Go Eagles!
Welcome to Bridgeview Partners, where IT and business innovation merge. We're not just another tech company. We're your strategic partner in navigating the ever-evolving digital landscape. Our team of experts tailors cutting-edge solutions to fit your unique needs, and ensuring your success is our top priority. Elevate your business with Bridgeview Partners. Discover the power of partnership and tech innovation today. Contact us now to experience the difference. Bridgeview Partners, where innovation meets excellence.
Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain. At Mandrecchia Law, we win big personal injury cases, but we always tell our clients up front that those cases almost always hinge on how much insurance coverage people or companies have. At Mandrecchia Law, we don't sell insurance, but we're experts at helping our clients make sure they have the right insurance to protect their businesses and families. Do you have the right insurance? Most people don't. For a consultation, visit mmattorneys.com or call 610-584-0700. Mandrecchia Law, aggressive attorneys who get the job done.
This is Seth Joyner, top analyst for the Birds. I've also analyzed the best auto dealerships, and I drive a Davis Honda.
Fall into savings at Davis Honda. Over 300 cars available. And right now, get rates as low as 0.9% at Davis Honda in Burlington. Plus, you'll get 2 years of free oil changes on every new and used Davis Honda vehicle. See why Davis Honda continues to win outstanding awards for sales and service, including the highest award from Honda, the President's Award. Get to Davis Honda in Burlington.
Fall into savings at Davis Honda. JP Mascaro & Sons is a family-owned, locally operated solid waste service company in business for over 60 years. You've seen the red trucks with the blue elephant that symbolizes strength and reliability. Mascaro is different than other national brands. Like the Birds, Philadelphia is home. They'll take care of all your waste removal needs. They have it all: an experienced workforce, state-of-the-art equipment, a cutting-edge recycling center, and their own disposal facilities. Call 888-MASCARO or visit jpmascaro.com.